The longest and hardest ride of my life. Exploring momentum and why it is difficult to get started, by Tom Seast. Weighty topic. Weight loss for me has always been a weighty topic. It weighs heavy on my mind, and I'd like to tell you why. Most of you know that at one point I weighed around 600 pounds. But some of you may not have known that. This picture was taken about 3 years after I had started dieting to lose weight and had experienced some success. You can see that I was a very large man. Nutrition and exercise. My plan when I got started was just to diet, because I figured I was too heavy to exercise. At the time, I was experiencing pain in my knees from the weight on the joints when I would walk. The simple act of walking was breathtaking and would leave me breathless. Climbing stairs was a challenge, and I could not run away from my future health problems. So I started by dieting with a low-carb diet. Riding bicycle. Eventually, when I got down to around 450 pounds, I decided to start riding a bicycle. After I began riding, I eventually rode 24,000 miles in about 7 years. I've often been asked what my hardest ride was. Riding from Clallam Bay. One of my most difficult rides was riding in the state of Washington from Clallam Bay. At the time, I weighed around 420 pounds. I had ridden my bicycle for quite a while, but primarily on flat surfaces. On that particular ride, we started at sea level in the little town of Clallam Bay in the state of Washington. We then proceeded to ride from sea level up to 1,200 feet above sea level over a stretch of about 8 miles. From there, we rode the rest of the 33 miles into Forks, Washington. That was a very difficult ride, but it was not my hardest ride ever. Tour de Donut. Every year, the little town of Staunton, Illinois hosts the Tour de Donut. The Tour de Donut is a 33-mile ride through the countryside in the area, and attracts thousands of riders from the surrounding communities and St. Louis. In the Tour de Donut, you ride and stop at donut eating stations, where you eat donuts and they subtract time off your total ride time. I rode the Tour de Donut at least 3 times that I can recall, but I never stopped to eat a single donut. But not stopping to eat donuts was not my hardest ride ever. Riding up Mount Angel. One of my favorite rides was riding from the little town of Gervais, Oregon, and riding through the countryside over to the little town of Mount Angel, Oregon. After about 13 miles of riding, when you reach Mount Angel, you start climbing through the town, and you climb past the Catholic Church, past many prayer booths, up to the monastery that is perched on the top of the mountain. This bicycle ride includes lots of soul-searching and time climbing, and is about 33 miles in duration. One of the treats is to stop at Mount Angel Sausage Company to have lunch. But this is not the hardest ride that I've ever ridden. Dwight, Illinois to Chicago, Illinois. My son Charlie and I rode most of Route 66 from St. Louis, Missouri to Chicago, Illinois. We rode that stretch of road over a period of 7 days. The total climb on the route was roughly 3,500 feet over 310 miles. Our longest riding day of that ride was when we started in Dwight, Illinois in the morning and ended up in downtown Chicago that afternoon. That ride was 85 miles long on a day when the temperatures reached the mid-90s. We actually ran out of water and both cramped up at about the 60-mile marker. It was a long, miserable, sunny day for a ride. But it was not my hardest ride ever. Roatan, Honduras. On April 16, 2015, in Roatan, Honduras, I rode from the cruise ship over the little hill into the flat area on the other side of the island. The little hill only goes up around 400 feet above sea level, but is extremely steep. The weather is always hot there, and the humidity level is high. On that particular ride, I got passed by a man pushing a wheelbarrow. That ride was long, hot, and sticky, and fun, but was not my hardest ride ever. The island of Bermuda. I have ridden the 27 miles across the island of Bermuda 5 times. There are 3 routes across the island, and I have ridden all 3. One of those routes involves riding the middle road down the middle of the island and on the ridge line of the hill on the center of the island. That road is extremely hilly and has very steep inclines at points. While challenging, that ride was not my hardest ride ever. The Mississippi River Ride. My son Charlie and I rode most of the Mississippi River on our bicycles. We did it over a stretch of about 30 days. One of our most challenging days was riding from Fulton, Illinois to Galena, Illinois. That day of riding was about 80 miles, if my memory serves. Charlie and I started the day by touring the windmill in downtown Fulton. As soon as we started riding out of Fulton, the skies opened up and rain poured on us for about an hour. After the rains came, the sun came out and baked the humidity into our bodies. We ended up riding over a period of about 12 hours that day, and it was miserable. But it was not my hardest ride ever. The longest and hardest ride. The longest and hardest ride of my life was on April 6, 2011. The distance for that ride was only 2.9 miles, which is not a very long ride by any standard. At that point in time, I had been dieting for just about 3 years and weighed about 450 pounds. I was overweight, but I could at least walk again. My wife's birthday was the next day. So, as a gift to her, I decided to start riding a bicycle again. That 2.9-mile ride was extremely hard. I practically fell off the bike when I finished, and I had difficulty putting the bike back on the car to take it home. That was, by far, the hardest and longest ride of my riding career. Why? Why was that the hardest ride? It was the hardest ride by far because it's always hardest to get started. It is difficult to get motivated when you know it's going to be a long, long, long ride. It's difficult to stay motivated and to keep going. But I did it. I have no regrets. And after that ride, I rode 24,000 miles over 7 years. But I would have never experienced those 24,000 miles had I not started with the 2.9-mile ride. It's going to be difficult. Many times in life, you know it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be a long, hard ride. And it's tempting to never start. It's tempting to quit before you make the effort. Or like me, you can just get started. It will be hard. It won't be easy. You'll want to quit. But it will be rewarding. And you will make all the new memories. I encourage you to do the hard things, because greatness starts with simple effort and builds with momentum. Me. I have never regretted the journey that I started, and I've never regretted not finishing it. I just continue to plod along and ride the momentum, starting new things as I go. Feel free to follow my links and my ramblings below.